Welcome and thank you for standing by. All attendees are currently in a listen-only mode for the duration of today's session. Today's webinar is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I would now like to turn the call over to your host from the U.S. Census Bureau, Crystal. Crystal, you may begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Storytelling with Census Business Builder. My name is Crystal Jimerson, and I'm a training specialist here at the U.S. Census Bureau. I would like to thank you for joining us today for the Exploring the Diversity of Census Bureau Data webinar series. This new series, created by the Census Academy team here at the U.S. Census Bureau, is meant to assist the novice to intermediate data user. These webinars are a great opportunity for you to learn from our experts about how to access the Census Bureau data, tools, and resources. You can register for any of the webinars by visiting census.gov/academy. Before I introduce today's speakers, let's go over a few important housekeeping rules. As mentioned earlier, this webinar is being recorded. For your convenience, it will be uploaded to our Census Academy site with all supplemental materials relating to the webinar within 30 business days. We welcome written questions during the webinar. Please submit your written questions using the Q&A panel, which is at the bottom center or the right side of your WebEx screen. Please take a moment to locate that now. Once you find the Q&A panel, make sure you choose All Panelists from the drop-down menu. This will ensure we see your question. Also, we ask that you do not include any personal or business identifiable information with your questions. We suggest keeping the chat panel open, as we will provide key links and other resources throughout the webinar. Keep in mind, you won't be able to respond to the chat. That is for us to send out links and other resources related to the presentation. My colleagues, Dave and Noelia, will be monitoring the Q&A panel, and as time allows, we will answer your questions directly through the Q&A panel, or we will share your question with the presenter to respond to during the webinar. If we do not get to all the questions with a response during the webinar, we will post the questions and responses with the webinar material on the census.gov/academy site within 30 business days. As you know, we are in a virtual environment, and sometimes technical difficulties might occur. If you are having issues, try a different browser, such as Chrome, or consider logging out and coming back into the session. If you are having audio issues, try selecting the computer audio or calling into the webinar via phone. If you wish to follow along, take a moment now to open an additional browser. Now I would like to introduce our speakers, Stacy Cochran-McNeil and Adam Grundy. Thanks again for being here today. Stacy, you may begin.
Thank you, Crystal. Hi, my name is Stacy Cochran-McNeil, and I'm a data dissemination specialist with the U.S. Census Bureau. I provide data education and data services throughout Maryland, Virginia, and D.C. I'd like to introduce Adam Grundy and have him say a few words about himself.
Thank you, Stacy. So as Stacy mentioned, my name is Adam Grundy. I'm a supervisor in the Economic Directorate in an area called the Data User and Trade Outreach Branch. I have extensive experience with business data. So I've been at the Census Bureau for roughly 15 years. And I am become mostly an outreach specialist. And that basically what that means is I am able to speak on a lot of our different surveys and programs, and that mostly for generalists, for novice users, all the way to expert users using many of our different data tools. So today I'm going to be guiding us through a data tool called Census Business Builder, or CBB for short. And I'll be guiding us through a couple of different areas of our Economic Directorate, basically the way we're structured. So first of all, this is our agenda for today. We have basically the way that Census Business Builder works at the beginning, some behind the scenes processes for this, how our economic programs work, different things about our NAICS structure, or North American Industry Classification System. So some of the different data sources that you would be able to see from the Census Bureau, whether it be county business patterns, the economic census, annual business survey. I'll guide us through each of those things with Stacy today. We're also going to take a look at ways you can actually use Census Business Builder, whether it be, from some of our case study examples of being an economic planner versus of being a restaurateur. We're also going to take a look at how you can use Census Business Builder in real time using a demo that I'll be walking us through. And also data from our economic census. We recently released our 2022 first look data, and more data releases will be coming out as the months follow. I'll also guide us through a new survey called the Annual Integrated Economic Survey, and then we'll have a Q&A session, and we'll eventually do a closing. So first of all, for behind the scenes of Census Business Builder, the first structure of this presentation is taking a look at our economic programs, North American Industry Classification System codes, and our data sources. So basically, you can think of our economic director area as basically this pyramid that you see on the middle of your screen. So first of all, at the top of our pyramid is our high frequency of surveys. These would be things such as our Business Trends and Outlook survey, the COVID-19 data hub that was stood up during the pandemic. And basically, I think these things come out on either a biweekly basis or even more frequently than that. And it provides the most frequent data that the Census Bureau is able to produce. And next in our pyramid is our monthly and quarterly surveys. These would be smaller sample surveys, and they provide the most timely data available. Things such as the M3, the Manufacturers Inventories, Orders, and Shipments survey. We also have a quarterly services survey that takes a look at the services sector as well. In the middle of our pyramid is our annual surveys. These have larger sample sizes, and they provide the most up-to-date trend data available. So things such as the annual survey manufacturers from our manufacturing sector, or annual retail trade survey. And you'll hear about our annual integrated economic survey that's going to combine 7 of our annual surveys into one comprehensive survey towards the end of this presentation. And then every 5 years, the censuses, we measure different businesses and governments. And these provide the most comprehensive data available. So years ending in the digit 2 and 7, we have our economic census, as well as our census of governments. And those basically, as you can see on the pyramid here, everything gets benchmarked down to that economic census level, an annual level, and so forth. And then at the bottom of our pyramid is our administrative data. These provide the most foundational data that's available from our business register that helps us supplement or produce additional economic products that you'll hear from about county business patterns, non-employer statistics, and more. All right, so next is our NAICS hierarchy, or North American Industry Classification System. On the right-hand side of your screen, you can see an example of a chart that takes a look at, as you add digits to a NAICS code, what you're going to be doing. So, for example, starting at the 2-digit level of a NAICS sector of information is a pretty broad category. As you go down to the 6-digit or U.S. industry code of radio stations, you get much more specific data that would be available. The key thing to take away here is that as you add more digits to a NAICS code, you're getting more specific, yes, but there might be less data available. We recommend starting at either the industry group level or industry level, 4 or 5-digit level when you're using most of our data tools, and then start to narrow down from there. So basically, the North American Industry Classification System, or NAICS codes, are a primary data dimension. We also will be talking about a couple of different terms such as establishments versus companies and firms. An establishment is a single physical location of a business, whereas a company and firm could be multiple different establishments within that same company. So if we have a fictional company such as Adams Bakery, that could be, let's say I have 3 different physical locations in the state of Tennessee, just as a made up example. So that would be 3 establishments, but only 1 company or firm. Okay. Also, we can take a look at examples of employers versus non-employers. An employer is somebody that has paid employees. A non-employer has no paid employees. They fill out a 1099 tax form, and we're able to track some of their business activity through our non-employer statistics program. So most of our programs only cover employer businesses. However, the non-employer statistics that you'll hear about today is going to be covering our self-employed individuals. So this help contribute to the gig economy, things such as taxi limousine services, family daycares, and also real estate agents as a couple of different examples of non-employers. So before I turn it over to Stacy, I'm going to also talk about our some of our annual programs and some of our annual surveys. So first of all, County Business Patterns is at the top. This covers our employer businesses in the United States, and it provides, like on an annual basis, information about, the number of establishments, annual payroll, things like that from different data elements that allows us to publish graphics like you see on the left-hand side about breweries going up by employment size ranges from 2017 through 2019. And then our non-employer statistics covers the non-employer businesses, the self-employed persons in the United States to help contribute to the gig economy, whether they're working that as their primary job or as a secondary job. We track different information from that business activity. Annual Business Survey covers employer businesses in the United States, and this provides great data about our business owner activity. So if you want to look at the number of Asian-owned restaurants in the state of Maryland, we would have information from that from our Annual Business Survey. If you'd like to look at the number of, let's say, Black-owned retail locations in the state of California, it could also, Annual Business Survey would be a best bet for that. And then finally, our economic census. This is the official 5-year measure of American businesses, and this provides comprehensive statistics at the national, state, and many more local levels. So very comprehensive survey means we get to go to much more granular levels, and more data will be coming out from the economic census soon. So Stacy's going to walk us through some examples now.
Great. Thank you very much, Adam, for that information. So as Adam mentioned earlier, we have a couple of people that we'd like to, take a look at to see what they are going to be, how they can really use Census Business Builder. So the first one is Jesse, and Jesse is an economic planner who wants to know more about the trends in state economics. He's currently, he looks at lots of different states, but he's currently focusing on California and specifically employer establishments and non-employer firms. And the data associated with them, as Adam just mentioned, with the definitions with the NAICS codes. He's interested in data across all sectors, the NAICS code sectors, but he also does want to take a closer look at the construction sector that is in California. So when Adam goes live, he will be able to show us how Jesse would be able to do that in Census Business Builder. So the next scenario, or people that we like to take a look at, are Pat and Chris. So Pat and Chris are business owners. They're looking to expand. They have a successful restaurant in Rockville, Maryland, which is kind of central Rockville, Maryland, but they're looking to move east about an hour or so. And they, want to make sure that that would even be a sustainable or viable option. So while exploring the possibility of expansion, they began to look at their current customers and, really recognize the fact that they have families that come, and a lot of times people are coming from 10 miles or so away. So what they wanted to start thinking about is that really is their customer profile to start with, and that when they are looking at Annapolis, they do want to make sure that they expand that search just beyond the Annapolis area, but to include that 10-mile sector around that. So when they started considering the possibility of this expansion, they decided to conduct a market profile, research profile. That'd be the next slide, Adam. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. So when they're putting together their market research portfolio, they needed to determine their expansion readiness, which be their business health, their revenue, and then they needed to look at some of this other business data, but also needed to look at demographic data. So the great thing about Census Business Builder is that you can do both. You can look at look to see if your customer profile is going to be in the area of expansion where they're looking at, and at the same time they can look at the business profile, meaning that they can see what other businesses are in the area. Is this already an area that already has way too many pizza restaurants, or is this something that they might be able to really open up a whole new business sector in this Annapolis area? So they are going to be able to really knock off a lot of those check boxes that they need to by going into Census Business Builder. So Adam, I think we're ready to see Census Business Builder in action. Can you show us how it's done?
Sure thing. So I'm
Thanks.
going to be guiding us through Census Business Builder, as well as giving you, first of all, some examples of some of the functionality that's in our latest version, which is version 5.5. So first of all, I'm going to guide us through some of the different examples about what is in Census Business Builder 5.5. It's a very easy to use platform, even if you've never used census data before. It overlays economic and demographic data onto a map. It's very customer focused. It's also available in the cloud. And this was developed by a company called Esri under the advisement of Census Bureau data and Census Bureau experts in order to create something that is very easy to use and enables you to pull in a lot of different data sources all at once. So before I go live, I just want to show you a little bit about how this data tool works. So first of all, when you go to the main dashboard, you'll see this take a tour option in the middle of your screen in yellow. This basically allows you to simulate some of the core functionality of the data tool. It will walk you through different examples about whether or not you're interested in downloading the data, whether you're looking for building a region. All those different things will be available in the take a tour option. Some of the key features here, we have our dashboard, which you can see on the bottom left of your screen. This takes a look at, what your primary variable is, your secondary variable, whether you select one and those different things. You have geographic rankings, as well as a region view and other different things that you can do within the data tool itself. We also have a geographic level. You can see on the top left of your screen, Nebraska is selected here. And we also can go to industry clusters, whether or not you want to select those or not. Also, we have different map buttons. We have different map legends and different reports you can do, whether that be a region report or the full report for the different geographies and industries that you've selected. And then in the reports, you'll see different examples of sections, interactive charts you can manipulate on the fly, and whether or not you want to download them as a PDF or download the data altogether in a CSV file. And we have single or multiple geography reports. The region builder allows you to build your own region with 2 or more geographies of the same type. So if you're looking at a couple different counties, like you can see on the red outline over here on the chart, you can do that on the fly and create and name your own region. We also have pre-built regions that are in the data tool too, if you want to experiment with those on your own time too. And then some of the data sources for Census Business Builder are a lot of different things we've already talked about today with county business patterns, non-employer statistics, the economic census, and annual business survey. But we also have different things from our demographic and socioeconomic and housing data, which comes from our ACS data, our American Community Survey data. We also have imports and exports data from the International Trade Program, workforce data from quarterly workforce indicators, as well as building permits data. You can upload your own data into the data tool too, using the Excel file upload feature. And we also have several different flyers that are available if you ever get stuck about how you could actually do that process. We also upload our own consumer spending data from Esri, which we purchased from the company Esri, and we put back into the data tool for free for users to use that data. So as I go live and I show the examples about the restaurant owner from Rockville, Maryland, what they would look at from the consumer spending data, or the economic planner, Jesse, looking at what he's doing on the West Coast. So while I do that, I'm going to show you just an example of how you can get there. You can either on your mobile device, scan this QR code that you see on the right-hand side of your screen, or go to the user-friendly URL of cbb.census.gov. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my browser so I can share this with you guys. Okay. So first of all, before I go into my examples of the ones that Stacy's already outlined for us today, I'm going to go to an example of a credit union here. So I see I've selected the geography of Seminole County, Florida. The way I've done that is by clicking on my geography section over here on the left-hand side. And I've also selected my example of an industry by clicking on the search for industries button. And I've started to type in credit unions. And you can see it's already been preloaded on my screen over here. I can edit my industries by adding more industries into my filters too. And then I can also go back to where I was on the dashboard. So let's say I was interested in opening up a credit union in this particular example of a geography. I see there's 32 establishments, which means they have paid employees. I also see the average annual payroll. My secondary variable is $62,829 per year is the average payroll per employee. I take a look at the different examples about what I've selected for credit unions in Seminole County, Florida, and how it compares to other geographies within that similar geography. So Seminole County is the 13th ranked for the number of credit unions in the state of Florida, where you can see Hillsborough County, Florida has 96. So if I was looking to expand my business in, let's say, one of these counties of Hillsborough or Duval County, I might want to look at Seminole County as an example for opening up my own credit union, because there's less of them available and there might be ways I can better service the communities that are around that area. Okay. Now, if I want to start over from those case study examples that I want to do, I'm going to click on the logo for Census Business Builder. So I click on that once. And now let's use that example of a restaurateur from Montgomery County, Maryland. So I'm going to go to Montgomery County as my geography by typing in Montgomery. And I'm going to see once it populates. And just as an example, I'm using Microsoft Edge in this example, but it also works with a lot of different browsers as well. So I'm going to select Montgomery County, Maryland. And now once that's repopulating, you'll see that it takes us to a different part of the map. And now I'm going to select my industry. I'm going to go to Custom Industries, and I'm going to start to type in restaurants. And it's going to should populate for restaurants and other eating places. Apologies for some of the slowness on my end, but should populate any moment. Restaurants. And yeah, I see some comments in the chat that yes, it's 100% free to use, and this is a platform that a lot of people, a lot of data users use for either growing or expanding their business, or even being an economic planner. So this is just different examples of things you can do within the data tool itself. So after this industry list starts to populate for me, I apologize for some of the delay here. Let me just reload it for a second. Well, while we're waiting for that to load, let me show you a couple different things on the dashboard. So first of all, if I go ahead and I'm going to minimize some of the things I can see around here on my chart, I have that dashboard that I can go to for that. You see my primary variable is just the number of establishments, whether that be for restaurants or other eating places and things like that. And I can click on that dashboard here. If I was looking for the number of non-employers, it's just an example for all sectors of the economy, whether that be for a restaurant or things like that. I can click on county, business annual, and I'm going to click non-employers and all non-employer firms. Once that's populated for my secondary variable, I can go ahead and minimize this dashboard. And it should populate on the map. Unfortunately, it is not at the moment. There we go. Okay, it's starting to populate now. I can see it's slowly starting to come together. So for Montgomery County, Maryland, you can see different things on here for number of establishments versus non-employer firms. So given the fact that it is being a little slow on my end, I will showcase some of the different examples from the same geography for examples of an economic planner, what they look at for employers versus non-employers, versus also a restaurant owner for this dual example for the same geography, Montgomery County. So after I populate different things on this dashboard, I can also take a look at some of the different things that are in the stats chart. Anything you see on the stats chart on the dashboard, you can manipulate by clicking on the change variable. So if I was looking for some of my consumer spending data for examples of how much people are spending on dining out, I can also take a look at examples for dining out for food away from home by clicking on this drop-down arrow as well. So if I was opening up a restaurant that's open up for, let's say, a pizza place that's dining out for examples for everything except breakfast, I may want to select consumer expenditures per household on dining out for lunch. Once that repopulates, it'll show up on the map over here on the dashboard. And I can also change, while this is loading, my other example for consumer spending data by clicking on county, consumer spending, dining out, and again, dining out for dinner. Okay, so once that's done populating, it'll showcase on the map different things within that dashboard. Okay, you can see it's a little bit of slow connectivity on my end. So while that's loading, I'm also going to load up the report for this section. So if you're a prospective business owner, you would want to look at a couple different things within the data tool by taking a look at all the different things that would be available to you within that. So if I click create report, and you're going to see this is going to manipulate everything within the geography of Montgomery County, Maryland for all sectors of the economy. So I'm just going to reload it right here. And if it doesn't give me anything for the report here, I might try a different browser just to see if that would speed things up. Stop sharing for a moment, and I'm going to share my Firefox in just a moment to make sure that this is not just an Edge issue. Let me go to Firefox and share. All right. So if I was going to go to that different example that I showed you here, let's try a different geography of California now. Okay, if I do the state of California, and this seems to be working much nicer now in Firefox, so my apologies for some of the slow connectivity on my end. So I'm also going to go to a different example for restaurants and other eating places. By selecting that industry here. And again, it's still being a little slow on my end. I see, there we go. Restaurants and other eating places is now populated. So like I mentioned before, we're going to start at the 5-digit NAICS code. And I'm going to go back to the map here. Oops, didn't quite take. I'm going to do the 5-digit NAICS, make sure it's selected. Start with the 4-digit if it doesn't do that. Apologies for this. But basically what you would do is you're going to create your report, and then you're going to see different things within this report as well. I'm still having some connectivity issues. In this case, let me go back through some of the different examples within my PowerPoint to showcase different things you can see within Census Business Builder. I can walk us through that way. Let me stop sharing this. And I'm going to show you different things within that dashboard that I could show you within the report too. So if I go back to my report, just a couple of things you would see in the Census Business Builder report would be things such as number of employer businesses, number of establishments you could see. And if it was loading properly on my end, you would see different things on the right-hand side of your screen too that you can manipulate on the dashboard as well, such as the number of employers versus non-employers, the average payroll per employee, average payroll per employer, and different things I would notice on the different things for that. You also can see a business comparison from different examples of different sectors of the economy, whether that would be doing things like that. And if for example, Census Business Builder is not working for you, we also have other data tools such as data.census.gov and other things like that. Unfortunately, it's just not quite working out for me at this stage for showcasing the demo. But I do want to make sure that we get through all the different materials within this as well. Other things you can see on the region report for this one, for the region builder, whether or not you're building your region by counties or by city towns, you have to make sure they're at the same different geography at that point. When you create your region report, you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, you can name your region, and you can also build it from the different industries that you have available from different NAICS codes as well. And then for the last part of this, you can see we have different consumer spending data that will be available on this, such as, how much people are spending on dining out for lunch, dinner, or breakfast. So depending on the type of restaurant you're doing. Let's say also you're opening up a family daycare. This would be like a non-employer. We also have data in there on about our population statistics, so about the people that are under 5 years old. Would be an example for something you want to look at for different geographies. Well, it'll be within the data tool Census Business Builder. And then if you're opening up a bar as a different example, we also have ages 21 years and over as another data category that would be within Census Business Builder. This showcases exactly what you can see for your clientele for opening up a bar at that point too. All right. Since our demo is not quite working right now, we'll try again just a moment. But I do want to turn our attention to the economic census at this point too. So the economic census is conducted every 5 years. It produces the most comprehensive economic data available, like I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. It is conducted online, and the response is required by law. The responses are kept confidential because of Title 13 and 26 protections. And around 4 million business locations are covered in the economic census, you'll see in the next slide. And the results will all be published for free and will be online once they are available. So we've already released our first look statistics, which takes a look at 2-digit sector based statistics for the national level. And we'll continue to produce our geographic statistics next. We also have on this slide an example of the number of businesses that are in the United States. So while there are 30 million businesses in the United States, 8 million of them are employer businesses, which means about 22 million are non-employers. So non-employers far outweigh the number of employer businesses in the United States. And we see that as an example in most sectors of the economy across the board. And only 4 million businesses will receive or have received the economic census form, and they fill that out because it is mandatory and required by law. Okay, this slide talks about our industry core coverage. So like I said before, we have the first look statistics were basically at these levels of industry coverage. And then when our first look statistics came out, this is some of the results, some of the great results that came out from the Census Bureau statistics. So the number of firms was 6.2 million. Number of establishments, so again, physical locations, the single physical location of a business is 8 million. Annual payroll is 8.6 million. And then the number of employees was 140.0 million employees that were across all sectors of the economy. And then we also have different examples for our economic census release schedule. So while the first look report has already been released as of January 2024, the next thing to come out from the economic census will be our island area statistics. So this would be things from, for example, from Guam, American Samoa, and Northern Mariana Islands next in June. In July, you can look forward to the U.S. Virgin Islands data. And in Puerto Rico, data is going to be coming in December 2024. Our geographic area statistics will be the next major release, which comes in March of 2025, roughly. And if you ever need more information about the economic census, you can always visit census.gov and look for that survey tab for economic census, and you can stay on top of all the different things coming out soon from the economic census. And lastly is our annual integrated economic survey. Kind of a mouthful, but it's called the AIES, or Annual Integrated Economic Survey. And this is basically what it does. It combines 7 of our annual surveys into one. So things that you heard about today, such as annual retail trade survey, or annual wholesale trade survey, a lot of those were sector-specific surveys. What we're doing is getting a way to be more streamlined and cost and do some cost-saving measures at the Census Bureau too, by combining 7 of our annual surveys into one comprehensive survey called the Annual Integrated Economic Survey. So things such as the annual survey manufacturers, which take a look at the manufacturing sector, is now being incorporated currently into our AIES. And this is a little bit example about what you can expect from the Annual Integrated Economic Survey, such as, what we're actually asking the number of companies, such as information collected, such as assets, whether the business characteristics and classifications within those certain industries, the amount of employment, so how many employees they have, operating expenses, payroll, revenue, robotic equipment, taking a look at certain industries that have that available to them, whether they be in the manufacturing industry or beyond, and various trade or industry specific content as well. So there's a lot of exciting things to look forward to from the Census Bureau. And then these are some of the different ways you can access our data. Like I mentioned before, the Census Business Builder demo wasn't quite working for me at the moment. I'll try again just another moment or so. But these are other different ways you can access the same data as well. This is by ease of use, from the top to bottom. So QuickFacts is a very easy to use platform. You can see on the top left of your screen, which gives you examples of basically like what the name implies. It gives you a quick example of industry specific examples of data from the Census Bureau. My congressional district provides business and economic data, and also demographic data by your congressional district that you can look up by zip code. So if you're ever unsure about what your zip code is, or excuse me, what your congressional district is by zip code, you can do that within that data tool. We also have things such as on the map for emergency management, which takes a look at different examples of national emergencies and things like that, whether it be wildfires or air quality alerts and things like that. And at the bottom of our chart is our data.census.gov, which is our main data dissemination platform. Okay. So before I turn it over to some of the recap for this, I'm just going to give Census Business Builder hopefully one more try here, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to see if it's populated. Okay. So it looks like it started to populate on my business profile for California. So thank goodness for that. So you can see when you do different things within this regional report that I've selected for California, I can see some of the different things that I mentioned before in my talking points, such as whether you're opening up a daycare for looking at percent 5 years and under, or opening up a bar for percent 21 years and over. All those different things will be available for you within this data tool. As I continue to scroll down, you can see other things in here, such as socioeconomic characteristics. So getting to know your clientele, if you're opening up a restaurant or different things in here, will be important for you to take a look at. And I can see also on the right-hand side, some different charts that are available. So how California compares from median household income to the national average too. So if I want to look at average household size, I can click on that. You can see the charts were repopulating on the right-hand side in real time. That allows us to take a look at how California compares to the national average as well. Other things in here, such as housing characteristics, whether or not you're looking to open up a certain area of that has a lot of houses nearby, to think about foot traffic and things like that. You can look at home ownership rates. You can look at home vacancy rates. I recently published an American Count story that talked a little bit about how you can use this data tool in order for realtors and how they could utilize the data and Census Business Builder data in order to figure out what would be the best place to, either own a home or even look for people that are on the verge of being ready to be homeowners. So taking a look at different things within the data tool will be helpful for this as well. We also have our custom industries by examples of establishments by employment counts, whether it be 20 to 49 employees to 5 to 9 employees. Business revenue data, which comes from our economic census data. You can see it down here. Well, you can go directly to those data tools and data survey pages. Other things that are available here at the all sectors level be the number of non-employer firms. So you can see the different example of the total number of employers versus non-employers, and also the number of those combined, because you really want to get both of those to get the full picture of what's going on in the economy. Our workforce data is available from our Longitudinal Employer Household Dynamics Program, or LEHD, and our quarterly business data as well. And as I continue to scroll down, you can see some of the building permits data. So if you're looking for an actual physical location to open up a restaurant or let's say an office building, we would have that data available for you too at various levels of geography. And then finally, our consumer spending data is at the bottom. So if we, like I mentioned before, we purchase it directly from a company called Esri, or ESRI. And what we do is we put it directly back into the data tool to take a look at all the different categories you might want to look at consumer expenditures. So for example, if I want to see how much people are spending on housing products, such as home improvements, or how much people are spending on water by that geography, I can take a look at that estimate right here on the right-hand side. If I want to take a look at examples for what people are spending on personal care products, whether it be hair care products or personal care products, I could also look at that as well. So I'm glad we were able to showcase at least part of the demo for you guys today. I'm going to go back to this, now to the slide deck, and close this out with some Q&A. So let me go to the next slide, and I'll let Stacy talk about our data dissemination and training program. Stacy?
Great, thanks, Adam. Thank you very much. Yep, technical difficulties do happen, as Crystal said, but I think you did a great job of explaining the tool, so thank you so much. As a data dissemination specialist, as I mentioned early on, I am a part of the Census Bureau's data dissemination and training branch. I am one of many data educators, and our main role is to help you become familiar with the available census data and train you to access and become proficient in the wide variety of census tools we have available. Within our site includes many resources, including Census Academy, a self-study platform, which we are on right now, which offers on-demand how-to videos and as well as the ones you can register for. And among them are short data gems, very simple and easy to follow 2 to 5 minute videos. We also have webinars and courses on different data topics, which allow you to learn at your own pace. You can review all of these resources at census.gov/academy. You can also use the QR code in the QR code in this slide to subscribe to the Census Academy for updated information and course offerings. Of course, we also offer in-person and virtual trainings for your organization. These allow for more interaction and are personalized for your organization's unique data needs. We offer these webinar training data all for free. So I think at this time we can move to questions. Are there any questions for Adam?
Hi guys, it's Noelia. So we got a lot of questions regarding specific data sets, specific research that people are doing. One of the questions, Adam, that you might want to touch on is, let me see if I can find it really quickly. Give me 1 second. Well, the one that I didn't know the answer to this. Can they share the recording on their library's website?
Do you mean the recording for this actual webinar itself? Is that part of their question?
Yeah.
I would recommend reaching out to our public information office for that to make sure that we are doing the best for cross promoting that. So if you want to send me an email, my contact information will be after this. I can make sure that gets to the right place to make sure that we fully understand your question and we make sure that you are cross promoting in a way that still represents the Census Bureau standards at that point too. That's a great question.
We have another question about whether we can import data sets into CBB, like NHA, NES, or if we can import our own data into CBB.
Yes, so there actually is a way you can upload your own data within the data tool Census Business Builder. There are some data flyers that are available that showcases you how to do that step by step within the data tool. We recommend either Googling Census Business Builder and then the word, make sure census is obviously in there. If you can't find it, again, you can send me an email or you can look for within the data tool cbb.census.gov. I highly recommend doing that take a tour option. There is an example in there about uploading your own data within the same format within that Excel file to make sure that it's going to be working properly for you. But if you ever get stuck, we're here to help. We want to make sure that we are able to stay in tune with our data users and make sure we make the right improvements.
Then one more question that kind of was coming across often. What do we do, and I'll kind of summarize everyone's question. What do we do when there's certain data that's not available for certain levels? For example, how come I don't have a consumer report for Puerto Rico or whatnot? Can you explain a little bit about the differences on when we may or may not see data?
Sure. So we usually recommend when you're using a data tool like Census Business Builder, starting at the county level and then drilling your way down to more specific geographies from there. So if I was looking at, let's say, Montgomery County, Maryland, and I look at the number of restaurants that are in that area, and then I want to look at some of the cities or census block level, there's not going to be much data available at the business level because we have to protect the individual businesses that report to these surveys. And unfortunately, that means a lot of data disclosure issues with that. So we recommend starting at the county level and then working your way down. And we also have the different data levels that would be available for you. If you're looking at the population, there's less restrictions available from our American Community Survey. So you can look at some of the clientele at census block levels or census tract levels as well. But again, if you ever get stuck or not quite sure if you understand the data, we have a lot of different specialists like myself and Stacy that are here to help.
I think that is it. Anything else is a little more detailed and personalized.
Okay.
Did you have anything that you wanted to share?
Yeah, we do have a recap slide. So Stacy, you want to take that one?
Yes, thank you very much. So today we had a lot of fun and we focused on Census Business Builder and explored the data available there and the various ways that you can use it. And again, I know that there were some limitations on the demo, but there are, if you go into Census Academy, there are recordings you can watch, and reaching out to Adam or any of the data dissemination specialists, you will be able to, we can definitely supplement what was done today for sure. Then Adam talked to us about the economic census data that's coming out, which we're all excited about having. And then also learning about the AIES, which we all have to practice saying that because it's not easy to say for sure. But that really is going to be a game changer. And we're also looking for that as well. So that is our recap. And if you want to go to the next slide. Yeah, so this is just a way to reach out to for specific information about Census Business Builder questions. Adam's information's on there, I'm on there, and then our way to reach out to our data dissemination specialists, my colleagues, is on here at the bottom. So please take a moment to take that information down. This slide will obviously be a part of the slides that will be posted in the next few weeks. So until then, you can just take that down. And unless you have anything else, Adam, I think we're done.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for attending today. I apologize again for the technical difficulties on our end. But like Stacy mentioned, there's several different recorded webinars that are already available on Census Business Builder. If you ever have trouble locating them, our contact information is on the slide right now.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you, Adam. Awesome job. And Crystal, we're all set for you to bring us home. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And thank you very much, Stacy and Adam, for your great presentation and for pivoting during those technical issues. So I appreciate that. Before we conclude, I'd like to thank everyone who played a role in today's webinar. We want to thank you, our audience, for spending your time with us this afternoon. We are interested in hearing from you on how we are doing, so please take a moment to fill out the evaluation that will appear when you exit the webinar. Look out for the recording, presentation, and related materials from this webinar on the Census Academy by visiting census.gov/academy within 30 business days. Please check out the Census Academy for additional training, resources, and to register for upcoming webinars. That brings us to a close. We thank you again for joining us today, and I hope that you have a great afternoon.
That concludes today's session. You may disconnect at this time. Have a good afternoon, everyone.